Just last week, I heard about the pondo tree. Does anybody know what it is? All right, well, you're going to find out. It's pretty amazing, and it fits so well into this story and welcome home that I want to tell you about it. The pondo tree, it's basically an enormous grove of quaking aspens high in the mountains in Utah, but it's actually one single tree. And it is the second largest single living organism. Do you believe me? It is, because the tree has spread out over 100 acres with some 47 stems. We would call them trunks, because that's what they look like. But they share a single root system, all from that one parent tree, the pondo tree. That tree is estimated to be 14,000 years old, the original aspen. But the real reason I wanted to tell you about it is because what the pondo tree can do, and obviously did 14,000 years ago. Aspens can reproduce in the normal way with pollen and seeds like trees and things do, but when stressed, they have an ability to make a choice. And they can choose to go down into their root system and go out like suckers, we all know these in our gardens, and rebirth that way. And so imagine over 14,000 years, these trees continue to bear new trees. And so it is one living organism. Isn't that astounding? Yeah, I just couldn't believe it. So this story about Ruth and Naomi is one of my favorites, and I'm sure it is for you too, for lots of reasons. It's a story of despair, but it's a story about hope. It's a story about shame, but it's a story about being re-energized and loved and embraced. Ruth, we know, is a daughter-in-law of Naomi, and Naomi, we learn, left with her husband from Judah, went across the Jordan to Moab because of a famine. They had to leave. They became refugees with their two sons. And life must have been good because we know the boys grew up and married and life was good, but now tragedy strikes again. And we hear that her husband dies and then her two boys, her sons, die. Whether there was an epidemic, we don't know, but what tragedy. Well, this means poverty for these women. Poverty, and they become homeless because things travel through the male line. And so for widows who have no sons, it was a desperate situation, and Naomi was a foreigner. She was an immigrant, so she had no place. So she knew what it meant, that she was going to have to try to go back to Judah where she had come. Well, it is a story of shame and what shame can do to people. She was a widow with no children, so what could she do but turn back to her people in Judah and hope there that she would be accepted? But it's also an incredible story of hope and love, about the power of community and what it can do to heal. And that is first seen in these beautiful, touching words, which I bet a lot of you know and keep in your heart. These words that Ruth said to her mother-in-law, who was trying to get the two girls to stay and marry again and have a life in Moab. One turns back, but Ruth refuses and says those beautiful lines, "Don't urge me to leave you. Don't urge me to turn back, for where you go, I will go. And where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried." And Ruth was good to her word. She stayed with Naomi through thick and thin, and they were shamed, both of them, when they came back. And there was snickering in the story as you read with the other women, what happened to Naomi? She's back. But together, they made it for a good long while, living off the land, because during the harvest, many of you know the word gleaning, it was sort of the social network system then, that the landowners left the edges of the fields with fruit, with grain in it, so the poor could come and collect it. So they fed themselves that way for a good while, but the harvest season ended. And so now these two women are starving again. And at this point, what desperate women sometimes choose and are forced to do, they contemplate trading sex for food. It's that desperate. And just when we feel there's no hope in this story, it does have a happy, blessed ending. Ruth meets Boaz, who's a local, very generous landowner. She must have been beautiful outside as well as inside, but Boaz falls in love with her. He marries her, but he also says, Naomi, you come and live with me as well. So it has a happy ending, this lovely story. Sadly, it reminded me this week that it's the same story we hear today in Chattanooga, in any city, in any place around the world, told by so many you might meet on the street or in a shelter or living in a desperate situation, a life that's full of disappointments, relentlessly demoralizing. And perhaps most heartbreaking when people are ill or they're at end of life and they are alone. We can't imagine anything much worse. But our city story has many, many happy endings. There are lots of agencies and faith communities, parts of our government that are incredibly helpful in creating homes and gracious communities of compassion and mercy. They are wonderful. They are filled with claiming the command, we love God by loving others. And so it is today that they echo the same words that Ruth said. Your people are my people, your God are my God, your home is my home, and where you die, I will die. Down a little forested road here in Chattanooga, there's a place and a road called the Quiet Place, and there you find Welcome Home. Truly, it's a place that echoes the story of Ruth and Naomi. And truly, it's a pondo tree where the DNA of God runs deep in the soil. This is a place with room at the table for all those beloved friends who find a home there, are cared for and loved, and find their purpose. And now it's my joy to let Sherry come and tell her story because it's remarkable and it gives you an opportunity to find out what joy we can have in serving with them. So thank you, Sherry.
Thank you, Jane. I don't think I've ever been introduced so beautifully, or Welcome Home has. You've brought me to tears, and so I'm going to try and compose myself, but you all look like very friendly and beautiful folks, so please bear with me. That was absolutely, in the story of Naomi and Ruth, to have someone say those words to you, it's just beautiful. So my name is Sherry Campbell. And I'm honored to be here, by the way. Thank you for the invitation. I was been a social worker in Chattanooga for 30 years. I started when I was about 5 years old. I'm well known as the youngest social worker in the world. But for 20 years, I've been working in hospice. For many years, I worked for a local hospice. And while I was there, I kept meeting people that had nowhere to go for end of life. I worked at the hospice unit at Memorial, and I was having to discharge people back to the streets once their symptoms became stable. I worked at the care center, where once their symptoms became stable, I had to discharge them back to their car or camper, desperately looking for a place for them, helping them reconcile. So I really had no choice but to listen to God. At the time, I was in the belly of the well, and I had been ignoring God for a long time. So I got spit back up on that shore. And one of my other favorite Bible stories. And I started working with a group of women. We met every Saturday at the library with ways of encouraging one another and how are we going to do this, and brainstorming and just being together, doing something. We had this desire. We received a big miracle grant in 2014, which is a beautiful story that I'm always happy to share. That enabled, from Blue Cross Blue Shield, that enabled me to leave my job and rent a 5-bedroom home in Brainerd. We started serving people in 2015, not just our brothers and sisters experiencing homelessness, but also our brothers and sisters who living alone, who didn't have anybody checking on them in the middle of the night or being with them at a time in our life when we need to know that someone loves us and someone cares about us. And we were going to buy that 5-bedroom home in Brainerd and make that our permanent home, but we kept running into these really weird dead ends. And I kept waking up with this great desire to go big. The need was so big. We had a waiting list. So we found a broker, and he helped us find 5 acres just over the ridge in East Chattanooga. It already had 3 buildings on it. And in 2020, we purchased that. We renovated the first building and moved over. So right now, Welcome Home is creating a whole community of care. And over the years, we recognized that we were caring for people that were dying of cancer simply because they couldn't get treatment, simply because they didn't have a roof over their head. So our board and our staff and all of us got together, and we felt like with this community, we could meet that need. So last year, we officially opened up a 3-bedroom home for cancer respite, so people can get off the street, get the treatment that you and I are allowed, and then we start working to find them permanent housing from there. But we're kind of like the Hotel California. Once you check into Welcome Home, you really never check out because we continue to follow. So we have 6 graduates out in the community that continue to be part of our family. I want to show you just a 7-minute video that PBS, WTCI did for us late last year. It highlights the friendship between one of our residents who came to us in hospice. Scrappy little guy. He's become my brother, my favorite person on the planet, other than my beautiful husband sitting back there. But it highlights him, and he came to us in hospice, but he said, he calls me Shirley. He said, Shirley, I want a second opinion. I don't think the doctors did me right. So we took him to an oncologist, and he has, in July, we'll be celebrating his 51st birthday. He's lived 2 years in our cancer respite program, and he's just a beautiful man. Now, before I show the video, I just want to share this with you, if you don't mind. A lot of people listen to the work that I'm doing, or when I tell people I work in the hospice world, they think, the first reaction I get is, that must be so sad. I could never do that. But I have to tell you, it's such an honor. It's very holy and sacred ground to be present with someone, and some of you may have already experienced that, to be with someone at a very important time in our life. When we're born into this world, we leave this world, I feel like those places are very holy and sacred. So Welcome Home isn't depressing, as you'll see. It's just a beautiful light that's been created, not by me by any means, but just by the love that's there. I also like to dispel the myth of us taking care of these poor homeless people. It's definitely not that at all. So it's real easy for us as humans, I think it's normal for us to have pity on others. But we work against that at Welcome Home. So the compassion we preach at Welcome Home is when we step in and we share another person's suffering. So we're in it with them, and they're in it with us. There's days that I show up suffering, I don't feel good, I'm in a bad mood, but one of my residents walks with me and puts his arm around me and hugs me. And so that's what we're doing there, and I invite you all to schedule a tour to come out. But I'll show this video. It says it much more beautifully than I do.
I mean, my life was rather hard, but I brought it on myself. I was on the streets, I was doing peddling around, and I was in jail like 4 times for this criminal trespassing was I was charged for. So I spent more time in jail than I did out on the streets really, but my life was just hectic. When I'd gotten in a fight, it's where they found the cancer. That's how they found it. And they said that they probably wouldn't do the surgery because I didn't have an address or something. It'd just get infected again. It's already going through all my body organs right now. You know, it's going to take my life. When I was down to the nurses and down there at the free clinic and they diagnosed me with that cancer, they got me a room here. So I have that blessing, they found me a place here.
I'm Sherry Campbell, and I'm the founder and director of Welcome Home. I've been a social worker in Chattanooga for 30 years now, and for the last 13 years before I started Welcome Home, I was a social worker for Hospice of Chattanooga. During my time at Hospice of Chattanooga, I kept meeting people that had nowhere to go for end-of-life care. If you're living outdoors, and you go to the hospital and find out that you have stage 4 cancer and you're dying, there aren't very many options or shelters for people to go to receive hospice care. We are a home for, a community really, for people that have a terminal illness or in need of treatment for cancer and need a place to stay. We want to create a place that is safe. We're a place where people feel like they belong, that they're loved and cared for, and where they can kind of put down their guard and be who they are. Beautiful people.
That's good soul. Yeah. What? I reckon all that moisture where I didn't know.
We do have staff and volunteers who come in and provide companionship and love and help with grocery shopping and laundry. But really, we're all kind of taking care of one another, right? Because we're all gonna die, and our residents help us as much as we might be helping them with the things that they teach us and just developing those friendships.
I didn't think about that.
When I came here, I had worked as a bereavement coordinator for another hospice, and I had retired from that. But I needed something to do that I would enjoy doing. I've been here and I like it. I feel comfortable here. You know, I feel like it's home.
Our volunteers are just beautiful, and they're really the heart of Welcome Home. So they provide care. They might take someone to the thrift store or to their doctor's appointments. When a resident comes here, they might come in very guarded, not knowing what to expect. Most of them have suffered significant trauma. Many have definitely PTSD. Then here comes this volunteer from a whole different world and becomes dear friends with one of our residents, and both of them change one another's lives.
When I first met Mark was cursing in paragraphs and sentences. You know, I thought, I have never heard language like this.
My particular words ain't exactly pleasing to some, I'd say. I had Geraldine talking about my language, but I have changed. With Geraldine, no, or not noticed, she's really brought the best out of me.
They have become really good friends, and I love seeing them laughing out on the porch.
I love it with Geraldine. We go shopping every time I get a check, I have a little bit of money, me and Geraldine go shopping. And I look forward to it. I tell everybody every time I see Geraldine, time to go to the store.
I think that with the relationship that I've developed with Mark, I don't know whether he's grown more or whether I've grown more. You know, and I think that I've learned a lot about me, you know, and I've learned a lot about Jesus.
It means quite a bit. It means I don't know how to word it really. You know, I always hope she'll be here, but I think this house, welcome home, is right here is a good place for people.
I believe that all humans, although we're very diverse, that we still have basic needs, especially at the end of life. We want to be happy, we want to be free of suffering, and we want to know that someone loves us and that someone's going to remember us. For me, I think community is very healing, reminding us that we're part of a bigger picture. We're not all alone, that people love us and care about us, and we love them too.
From each one of them, I have learned something different. You know, I've learned that you don't, like from Mark, I've learned that you don't have to be a multimillionaire to be generous. You know, you always got something to give. I consider this as something I get to do. You know, to me, I consider it a privilege. No matter what may be going on, when I come out here, I feel like that I have recharged my batteries.
For us at Welcome Home, it's very holy and sacred ground to be with our brothers and sisters who are leaving this world. The gifts that they teach us, the gifts that they leave us with is just such an honor. We're walking each other home. So we're not alone in this walk on this planet, walking each other home all together. Thank you for watching that with me. Isn't Mark just beautiful? He's just become, like I said, one of my favorite people. I just wanted to share this before I finish about reconciliation at Welcome. So Mark's brother came from Tri-Cities to be with him last night. My weekend manager sent me a picture I wish I could share with y'all of him and his brother and his sister-in-law together with their arms around each other. So we've become a place of reconciliation. I just wanted to share one story if I have time. Years ago, James came to live with us and became a teacher for me. He was like Mark, cussed like a sailor, beautiful man with these silver, really blue eyes and silver hair. I knew he was a generous man because even despite his gruff attitude, because when I met him, he was living in a condemned home, and looks like he was letting everyone else live there with him. There were people doing drugs in the kitchen. There were stray dogs staying in the living room. There were all kinds of folks there, and so I was surprised when I asked him if he wanted to come stay at Welcome Home. He said yes. He didn't even know me, but he took a chance and said, yes, I do. So he came, and it was in the early days when I didn't have any staff, and he had a catheter bag, and I have pictures of him with that catheter bag hooked onto his pajamas, helping me water the plants outside. He took good care of me. He cussed me out a lot, but he took good care of me. I'll never forget James. One night we were sitting on the porch, and I asked him if there was anybody that we need to call. And James cussed me out, and I let it go. I don't like to push on those matters, because you never know what stories people bring. And some of the people at Welcome Home tell us their story. Some we never learn anything about them. and others tell us the story that they want us to know, to believe about them, and we respect it all. So a few nights later, we were sitting out on the balcony, and James asked me what I meant about calling somebody. And I said, well, James, you're in hospice care, and you're here, and you're 59 years old. There's got to be somebody in your life that would want to know that you're here. And he must have been thinking about it, because he told me right away, I want to call my sister Polly. And he still remembered Polly's phone number, which I'll never forget. I still know her phone number. He must have had that kind of tattooed on his heart, right? And I wondered how many nights over the years he had thought about calling her. And he invited me, he asked me to sit there with him while he made that brave call. And as a social worker, I've been there before when that call is made, and you're just praying that it goes well. And you know that you're in an incredibly holy place when someone says, will you sit here with me while I do this, while I make this brave call? He called her, she answered, and there were shrieks of joy. I remember his words. He said, Polly, very businesslike, this is your brother James. I want to let you know that I'm okay, but they tell me I'm dying. She showed up the next day. She didn't live far, she lived up in Saudi. And then she kept bringing more and more family. And when James died, Jeff was there too. The house was full of people that loved him. I don't ever think we ever heard the words, I'm sorry, or we never knew why they stopped talking. But I know when James died, there was love all around him. And he had created that by making that brave call. Beautiful family. I got, they allowed me to take their picture, and it's out in the foyer. I brought that. At the time, I had not been talking to my sister. Jeff remembers this too. We had gotten in a fight over a Monopoly game. Has anybody in here gotten in a fight over a Monopoly game? Is it just me? Thank you. I think the board went flying across the room, and we stormed off from one another, never to talk to one another again. And here's James making that brave call when he's very, very sick. And here's me, not going to talk to my sister ever again. Well, I called my sister, and I said, Jennifer, I'm so sorry. I was wrong. No, I wasn't wrong. Don't tell her I said that. But I said, I love you, and I just want you to know. James had taught me to do that. So when you're working in the hospice world, and you're working with people, teachers like James, it helps you live your life better. Like, am I really going to get mad at you because you cut me off in traffic? Or because you said the wrong words? Is that really that important? And so we try and encourage and facilitate reconciliation and love for one another. The words that Ruth said to Naomi, I'm going to be with you. I think our world has become so politicized and living in the pool of dualism that we try and create something different there at Welcome Home. Thank you all so much for allowing me to be here. It's just been an honor. And thank you, Katie and Dr. Warren and Jayne and all of you. I appreciate you.